Hey, everybody. My name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film. Thanks for joining us today. This is our 34th year of sharing films for, by, and about our community and its allies. This is our first year as a hybrid festival. So we have a very limited schedule in theater. We also have some great virtual programming as well. So I hope you'll enjoy both of those. Everybody who knows me knows that I am a huge fan of documentaries. And one of the extraordinary documentaries from this year is Gemmel and Tim. I want to read about it briefly, and then we're going to go around the room, introduce some people from the film, and we'll have a great conversation. In 2017 and 2019, respectively, Jamel Moore and Timothy Dean, two gay Black men, both died of a meth overdose at the now infamous Laurel Street apartment of Ed Buck, a once influential Democratic donor, businessman, and animal LGBTQ political activist. The deaths sent shockwaves throughout LA's LGBTQ community, and particularly West Hollywood, LA's gay mecca. The ensuing media circus cooked up a spicy concoction of sex, drugs, race, and politics, but had no appetite for the in-depth human stories of who Gemmel and Tim truly were. This documentary looks at Gemmel and Tim's parallel walks of life through the eyes of their extended families. We have some special guests today from the film, so I'll go around the room and let you all introduce yourselves.
Thank you. I'm Michiel Thomas. I'm the director of Gemmel and Tim, and I'm very excited to show the film to Out on Film in Atlanta.
Hey everybody, I'm Michael Franklin. I am one of the producers for Gemmel and Tim, and I agree with Michael. I'm very excited to have our film there.
Okay.
I am DeMarco Majors, and one of the friends of Tim Dean, who was just privileged to take part in the film due to both Michaels. And I'm very excited to be here with Out on Film.
Thank you so much for joining us today. This is, as I was watching this documentary, I was sad and I was angry because this felt, I had heard about the story, but I had not heard all the depths of the story. I hadn't heard all these stories, and it really surprised me, made me mad that how little I didn't hear. But to me, how contained was this initially to Los Angeles? I'll start with Michiel Thomas.
Well, first it was ignored pretty much also in Los Angeles. Only a few media outlets picked it up. Mm-hmm. And it was really the Justice for Gemmel team and Jasmine Canick and Gemmel's friends at first who really did everything they could to bring this story to the forefront. And it started in local media, but it wasn't until Tim passed when the national media also had an appetite for the story, and then not always from the correct angle, always from the clickbait angle. So that's why we felt a real need to tell this story, told through the eyes and the voices of the people who knew Gemmel and Tim best. So,
sure, Michael Franklin, when you talk to people about this case, what kind of reaction did you get? Did you find that most people didn't know the full depth of all that had happened in both cases?
Yeah, a lot of people that I talked about the story with, it was like a vague memory or something that they heard about a Democratic donor, and two Black guys were found, but they wasn't sure how everything transpired. Mm-hmm. So just a lot of people were just definitely surprised when we brought the film to the forefront. It's like, oh my God, like like I didn't know that was how everything, broke down and ended up leading to Ed Buck finally being, convicted.
Sure. Michael, you've done a great job of really showing what happened factually, but you also really humanize these two men. Can you talk about the decision of both of you to really tell these stories through people who knew these two men?
Well, Mike and I talked about it a lot at the beginning, and one of the things we did first was reaching out to. Sure. Well, I knew Tim's friends because they're my friends. I've been knowing DeMarco for many years through gay basketball, And so for us, it was very important to reach out to the people who we know to get their blessing and to talk and to listen to them, how they experienced it, and to kind of get their blessing of telling the story the right way and finding the right angle. So, you know, we first, you know, DeMarco is one of the first people we reached out to. We talked about it, and it kind of snowballed from there.
DeMarco, when you were first approached by this, were you hesitant or were you on board immediately?
I wasn't hesitant. I was just sensitive.
Sure.
I was sensitive to the material because when you have a friend for 20 years and how the media displayed them, it becomes a sensitive project to you. And not that I was there to monitor them in any way, but just to hear the angle that they wanted to do and the light that they want to shed. So I was sensitive, but also very, like I told Michael, you know, I'll support you anyway. All you have to do is just let me know when and where, and I'm there.
Okay. This film does such a great job, as I just mentioned, of really humanizing both men. Can all of you three talk about the fact that, you know, this is a documentary that, as I said, works factually, talking about what happened, but really talks about these men and telling their stories and how they really led up to that, to their nights. Can all of three of you sort of mention, you know, that element of this?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, go for it.
Oh, yeah, you know, we didn't, at the end, when Ed Buck was arrested, you know, there were many news reports out there, and we definitely didn't want to just copy paste what was out there.
Exactly.
And we also had a, you know, a list of a lot of people who were involved some way, somehow, to maybe bring the story of like an overview. But, you know, after talking with Mike, we went back and forth a lot on this. We go to the gym together, and that was a daily discussion at the gym. How are we going to do this? And, you know, we came to the conclusion pretty quickly that the angle of the friends was our strength. And also, you know, not the strength of the access that we have, but they knew Gemmel and Tim, you know, best. Of course, there's also the families, but they knew them from very close, and we felt like they were the perfect people to tell this story. And also because their voices, most of their voices were not heard. Exactly. And so that was very important to bring their voices to the forefront, to humanize Gemmel and Tim.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I believe the question is, how did they live with it? Or, you know, Gemmel and Tim. Like to add on and piggyback off Michael, one of the biggest through lines that we wanted was the story from the friend's angle. Nobody know you or know, you know,
exactly.
It's closer than a friend. Sometimes your friend is closer than your brother, or even sometimes closer than your family. So like with Gemmel, you know, Sammy, Gia, and other friends, they're in the film, but they really, really, really wanted to tell the true version of their friend and bring it to the forefront, and not the salacious news story and what everybody was thinking about. And then as far as with Tim, DeMarco and Mike's and other, like the biggest thing that, you know, we wanted to represent, the same thing was, okay, how did the friends perceive their friend? What would, if your friend can make a documentary on you, what would he say, or what would she say, or what would the team say about them? So, you know, once we focused in, okay, that's what we're going to tell, this is the angle that we're going to come with, you know, I won't say we didn't have any struggles. We did have a lot of going back and forth with what would work and what wouldn't, as far as what the friends said that was truly important. And I think from both sides, what was truly important was they were humans, they lived. And, you know, like we say that a lot, like, oh yeah, you living. But, you know, the way that the media dictated them, it was just like, oh, two victims. and, you know, this Democratic donor, but they had, you know, different relationships with each one of their friends and family, and it shows through the film, because for justice for Gemmel and Tim to even come to the forefront, there had to be serious love in there. You know what I mean? The show. Yeah.
I believe this film, from a friend perspective, being a part of the film and having the conversation and seeing what, you know, even though we've all sat down, me, Alex, a few other guys, we've all sat down for the last 2 years and we've had these conversations. However, we just wanted an opportunity to give other people what Tim's voice sounded like, his laughter, his love, his joy, because the media can create and paint whatever they wanted. And so they would pick on his people's past to bring it up, to take away the human elements of them. And this film gave us, who are his friends, an opportunity to heal, because we got to be in conversations of our joy of our friend, regardless of the demise. So that's what this was really for us from a friend perspective.
Okay. DeMarco, how frustrating was it for you to see this case largely ignored, or not really the entire story told, or when it was told, to be just have, you know, sordid details, you know, come out instead of telling a full investigation? I mean, how frustrating was that?
So frustrating, to the point where even right now, just thinking about it, my face starts to quiver, because the very first things that the media picked on was, you know, sex work or porn. You didn't say anything about our friend just died. We watched his body come out of, I watched his body on the news come out of that house. And I had already taken a screenshot when it was in the newspaper first. And I didn't know that that was his body.
Jeez.
So to see that frustration, that anger, and having to take it, because again, the media really doesn't care about a Black gay man's life. And that's the very frustrating part. So that's why I'm so proud of both Michaels to be able to take that story and take that frustration away from us, and to put it into and give it light.
Sure. I want to ask you all about Ed Buck, obviously, but first of all, I did want to ask you, to the Michaels, can you talk a little bit about the decision to use animation in this film?
Yes, that was very important, because like we discussed, you know, some of the things are very explicit, and we wanted to be very careful of how we show certain things. I mean, of course, we wanted to tell the full story and not shy away from what actually happened in the apartment. But at the same time, we wanted to deal with that with the respect and dignity that it deserved. And we felt that animation was a creative way and a respectful way of showing that. We worked together with an animator, Remy Ndao from Belgium, a fellow Belgium, and it was my first working with having full animation.
Michael brought that idea of animation, and you know, for me, I'm a person of, okay, show me what you do and we can clean it, or I'll pitch an idea, like he said, we'll bounce back and forth. So when he pitched the idea of animation, I was like, I don't know, this is such a serious topic, you know, how are you gonna, you know, make me believe it, Michael? Let me see. He's like, no, you know, then this, you know, the flames and this. And I was like, okay. And I'm, you know, I'm a visualist, so I was, you know, start visualizing what he said. I was like, okay, I think, let me see. And, you know, when he brought Remy in, it was like, okay, I see where you're going with it, because I got it at its earliest stages. So I would really just like to give the credit to Michael for that. Yeah, he bounced ideas off of me, but that was his baby. And, you know, I'm so happy that it really told the story, because for me, the animation came in as an extra character, or it really told the story from a visualist point of view.
Exactly.
So I kudos to Michael for that.
How much about Ed Buck did all three of you know about before these two cases?
Well, I knew some of it. Sammy is, like I said, one of my close friends.
Sure.
And Gia is one of my close friends. And me and DeMarco have been knowing each other for years. So, like, I was on Facebook, and I would see the posts come up, and I was like, oh, yeah. So I kind of knew a little bit about the story of Ed Buck. And then it was like, oh, the Democratic donor. And my friend, because like we said in the beginning stages of this, the media didn't pick it up. So the only thing that you did have was the friends bringing it to the forefront. So on my timeline, it'll scroll through of what they're posting. They're going to march. It'll scroll through of they're protesting, or they're going to stand out City Hall, or whatever was coming up. The event was coming up. So I didn't know about Ed Buck, but I had it vaguely in the back of my mind. And then when Sammy like really was blasting it, I was like, oh my God, what is this? What is going on here? It's like, oh my God, I know, like it was just a crazy thing. But one of the things with Ed Buck's story, like even like I said earlier with other friends, like not too many people know. They know the Democratic donor and two Black boys. That's, usually the gist of it.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And same for me. Not anymore, but,
This is such a loaded question personally, because I never knew Ed Buck personally. I had never met him. How I come to know of his name was through Tim and our conversation right after Gemmel had passed away.
Sure.
And when Gemmel passed away, I had just moved to LA. And then fast forward, to, I believe, to that December, Tim and I had talked about what happened. We couldn't believe that Ed Buck got off from Gemmel, and he was just talking to me about, just that's just crazy. So just listening to that and having that conversation with him, Ed Buck's name ran around around West Hollywood like the boogeyman. That's basically who he was amongst Black gay men, and that's kind of how I heard his name, not just through the media and what he did and gave on all that stuff. He was basically the boogeyman. That was his name.
Yeah, and his name, but the crazy thing is it's not just him. And those stories, went around, and you heard about him and Dr. Kevorkian and all that. Like those were names that I heard before about him. And there's a lot of rumors. So this definitely was not new, or like that everyone was surprised. It was definitely known what he was doing. It was just on the down low. It was not talked about, or at least not in public. But like I said, the crazy thing is that there are more people like that out there. And so it is not just him. He just happened to be the face because of his political connections. But there are a lot of people out there like him. And that's why, we feel that a film like this is very important to shed a light on this issue, because, of course, this tells the story of Gemmel and Tim, but it also tells the story of a lot of people who are trapped in that situation.
Exactly.
So, we hope that this will, have a snowball effect and a domino effect.
Exactly.
To stop other people like Ed Buck.
There's a moment in the film where someone wonders aloud what would have happened if a white man was found dead in the apartment of a Black man. What would happen? So what happened? if that had happened?
You want the truth?
Yes, please tell me the truth.
That is such a touchy subject for me. Well, we had that conversation with, like, me and Michael had that specific conversation, and the anger and the rawness of it, I was going back and forth. Michael was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, Sammy. And he was like, yeah, Tim. And we was kind of like pitching and jumping around with ideas. And I said, the fact that if he was Black and he, you know, like if it was a white, I mean, the fact that he was white and if it was a Black man, I can't give him a word so you didn't frustrate me.
Right.
The fact that if it was a Black man and a white man was found dead in his apartment building, it would be all the bells, all the rings, everything. It would be media attention. It'd be blasted. Oh my God, I can't believe this just happened. And 2 white men? Oh, wow. The whole building would be arrested. So for me, it was just like I can't even explain it. It was just such an emotional hit to my heart, where it was, when we started going back and forth with the ideas, I think Michael had to like calm me down and go, okay, for us to stay focused and have emotions in it, but not let emotions take us and carry us away.
Exactly.
And focus. Yeah, because for me, it was George Floyd, and he's talking about Ed Buck, and then it's Cassandra, I can't say Castillo. It was just so many names to be listed, where it's like, this is just another situation where a white guy gets away with killing Black kids in some form. Cops, now, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just everywhere. It was crazy.
The fact that he was a prominent, figure in politics. I mean, how did his prominence help him pretty much remain nothing? Well, nothing happened to him for the longest time. I mean, his prominence in the Democratic community, how did that affect the fact that nothing happened to him for the longest time?
It's just Michael DeMarco.
You know what? Let's just call it what it is. Let's call it thing. Okay. If it were a Black man, the reason why you don't hear about these things coming from Black men doing something like that is because most of the predators who things go after lower hanging fruit. And as Black gay men in this community, sometimes we're seen as the low hanging fruit. So a lot of people don't truly care. Mm-hmm. Now, had it been 2 white guys, forget that it would have been 2. One white guy who may have OD'd. You don't hear about stuff like that happens because it gets taken care of right away. Mm-hmm. But the fact that it was 2 Black men and they allowed it to linger because the voices were not heard. Yeah. The very fact that people in I'm fumbling over my words, and I love to communicate because I get so pissed off. Right. And like I said, call a thing a thing. It has to be several cases of Black lives. That's why when the Black Lives Matter thing was happening, after this was happening, that's why I kept saying to people, Black moments matter, not Black lives. Because why did it take all of this for these bodies to be found in this place? Why did it take 2 more people to OD before somebody said anything? This is the hardship. This is the failure. We're failing our community by not speaking on it and sharing it. The conversation shouldn't even have to go, well, what if it was 2 white guys? Mm. The fact that it's just a human body, period, in this situation, and this is what we have to deal with. So yeah, that's extremely frustrating. Let me not use those words. It's just frustrating.
And it is a case of a lot of layers and on so many different levels. And, you know, politics is one of them, like you said. You know, the fact that the mayor of West Hollywood discouraged other victims to come out and tell their story, you know, is one example. But yes, like, you know, I was aware, of course, of this story for a long time, but it wasn't until George Floyd happened, and I was marching with Mike during one of the marches in downtown, where I asked myself, you know, what can I do to contribute, because, you know, there's also a lot of systemic failures in this case. And that's how, you know, this came about. I just finished another film, so I was, you know, in my mind, I was able to finally look into other projects, and this was definitely a story we wanted to tell because of those reasons.
Yeah, and obviously there was a lot of racism here. Obviously there was a lot of homophobia here. But Michael, you mentioned earlier, and one of the lines that just stayed with me after I watched the film is that there are lots of Ed Bucks out there. Can you talk about the fact that there are Ed Bucks in West Hollywood and everywhere, all over the country? Can you talk about that?
Well, I'm sorry.
No, any one of you.
Well, there are a lot of Ed Bucks. Once we brought this story to the forefront, I was showing one of my friends who's recovering from crystal meth. Mm-hmm. And I was showing him, and he watched it, and I say the first, you know, his attention span is really like short. So he's watching first, and he's like, I was like, yeah, you know, it's about Ed Buck, and it's about Tim and Gemmel, and, you know, like the systematic failure. And I'm going, and he's like, let me just watch it. So he's watching it, and he's like, you know, there's a lot of Ed Bucks. I was like, what? You know, like, I know of like, I don't have specific situations, but I won't say his name, but he was explaining to me like all the different Ed Bucks in West Hollywood. And you got this one who likes to choke and call you all kind of N-words. And you got this one who, you know, Ed Bucks like to shoot you up. And this guy likes to give you G. And I was like, why is no one trying to get these people or try to prosecute them or take them? And, you know, it goes into addiction, and it talks about how, you know, funding and money and all these other things. And some people have been caught, but they skip right on out of there. So he was like, yeah, this is just the story that for the moment, like DeMarco said, that's out. This moment is blatant and obvious. But as far as being in West Hollywood and all the other Ed Bucks, he's like, it's a voiceover Ed Buck, it's a real estate Ed Buck, it's a you know, all these different Ed Bucks, stylist Ed Buck. But yeah, there's a million.
You know, you two are filmmakers.
DeMarco, go. You wanted to say something.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
In regards to, there are a lot of Ed Bucks out there. We have to understand that in right now, crystal meth is an epidemic right now, and it has leaked because certain drugs didn't originate in certain groups. So now that crystal meth is big and it's moved into the Black community, anytime you have anything that is P and P, any of that world, there starts to be a loss of humanity within any of us. Mm-hmm. I understand that world because I'm a person who has recovered from it. I fight that all the time. So I understand a lot of people don't want to talk about it because they have yet to come out of that situation of the addiction. And most people don't understand that the addiction is to the emotions of the trauma that sends you into a place like that. So it's hard to talk about the many Ed Bucks that are out there when you're still in the trauma of addiction. That's why the conversation is not being fueled as much as it should be and can be. That's why this film is so important to this generation of this epidemic, because it will give us the freedom to have the conversations that are necessary, because it allows the platform to be started.
Yeah. You two are filmmakers, and you're very good filmmakers. And you uncovered a lot about Ed Buck's past before any of this happened. And it just again, it saddens me and angers me that, you know, the police department or the people who this information should matter to, none of this seemed to matter to those people. Can you just talk about, I mean, and you know, I'm sure there's a lot more that we probably don't know. I mean, can you talk about that aspect? I mean, you uncovered a lot about this, but I mean, there's probably a lot more that's out there that no one knows.
Yes, I spoke with one person, and when we were almost done finishing the film, that person told me like, "Hey, Michael, you know, I'm ready to," because that person was hesitant to talk about other people like Ed Buck. And he said, you know, I'm ready to talk about it and share. So hold on one second, because I'm getting a message here. Let me turn that down. You know, there were multiple examples that we got, and also on a political level, investigation level, there's so many still layers. You can make a series out of what happened, pretty much. So you know, so we had to make editorial decisions, and we felt by just focusing on Gemmel and Tim, we are telling the story of a lot of people out there, and we hope that this will represent so many other people that we can help in the future.
Exactly. I was earlier this year, not sure how long ago, I watched a documentary on Kendrick Johnson, and I was stunned because there was, you know, in Georgia, that case. Well, I mean, everywhere that case is pretty well known, especially in Georgia. But there was so much about that case that I just didn't know. I was just really mad that I had never found out about. And I see parallels to this. I mean, you hear about this story, but you only hear snippets about it. But I mean, I guess there are parallels to this and so many other stories across the country. You just don't, you see in headlines, but you see a paragraph about, there's so many stories that are just not being told out there. And how do we get to the point where these full stories like this can be told, and we can get these stories out there?
I believe to get these stories to the forefront, you have to make people care.
Sure.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I think that we all go through our day-to-day life, and we hear these stories or we hear glimpses and pieces of it. But once it started being so much, which it has been for a very, very long time, it just kind of passed you by, you know, and you hear Kendrick Johnson, you go, oh yeah, I remember that. Or George Floyd. Well, George Floyd was such a big spectacle in the media where everyone at one point was stopped and couldn't do anything due to the pandemic, and they just had nothing else but to focus on this video of that man having his foot on his neck or his knee. So like at that time, everybody slowed down whatever moment they were in and they cared. They just could not believe it. To get this to the forefront, you know, I'm not a specialist at this kind of stuff, but I think it would most likely be more movies like this where you reach, or we're able to reach a bigger population or a different, you know, we have it in China, or we have it in Africa, or we have it in definitely United States, you have it in the South, you have it in New York, you have it in Hawaii, you have it in all these different places where it just kind of passed by people and they actually take a moment and just focus in on it and care. More movies, more stories being told. Push the stories to the point where, you know, at some point you take notice. You hit from the left, you hit from the right, you hit from up, you hit from down. So by the time I come right at you directly, the story is so present in your face. You're like, oh yeah, I pay attention, and then you zone in and care about it. I don't know. I think one of the biggest issues is just that having people care showing that these stories matter, their lives matter. They're not just salacious movies or salacious news interviews or news reports. That I guess that would just be the biggest thing, just have people care.
And I think by having people care is, one way to do that is by showing a bigger picture. In the media, we only see the crime or what led to that crime, but not who those people really are. And I think what we try to do is, we also try to show personality and fun moments of Gemmel and Tim and who they really were, because once you start caring for them as people and you recognize yourself in them and you're like, oh, these are good people and not just like drug users or whatever they portray them in the media. I think by humanizing them and showing compassion, we can start showing compassion for these circumstances. And that's what will lead to change on all levels in society, but also in politics, to create a better understanding. So, yeah. Okay.
We're probably going to need to wrap up soon. I did want to just ask you about Outfest, because Outfest was your world premiere. And obviously that seems like a fitting place to show this film for the first time. What was it like to have this film at Outfest where all this happened? And what was a conversation like afterwards when you showed this to the world for the first time?
DeMarco, how did you experience it? Because you did not see it. It was the first time that you watched it at Outfest. So how was it for you?
Personally, it was Michael and I have been friends for 20 years. Me and Mike Thomas, we've been friends since he's gotten to the United States.
Okay.
So my very first night that I ever went to a gay bar, I met Mike. So to see both of these men put a film together that's about one of your other friends that you've known for 20 years, and to see it on the big screen, I was so proud of my friends. You know that they're good at what they do, but sometimes you just don't know how good. So when it was up on the big screen, it was just not just because of the content, but my heart just burst with love and joy because one, they did it. Like, how hard it is to finish something like this strenuous. So it was such a beautiful moment to see them. I could have just sat in the back of the theater in the dark and just clapped my hands to see, and just because I'm just so proud of them. I was proud of the moment. I was proud that Outfest actually allowed a film of this nature to be on that grand stage. So it was an amazing experience.
What's DeMarco? Thank you.
Oh,
DeMarco. I appreciate it. No, it was very special, especially because it was in Los Angeles, and everyone who was there was very close to the story, and to hear people laugh, cry, get angry, cheer out of joy, that was a very beautiful and emotional experience to witness. So but for me, from all of the people who were in that theater, to me it mattered most, who Gemmel and Tim's friends and family, what they thought about it, and that's all I cared about at that moment.
So as we wrap up, I just have one more question for the Michaels. What's next for the film, and how can you continue to get this film out there and show it to as many people as possible that need to see this film?
Michael?
Go ahead.
Well, immediately, I would say in general, it would be to run the festival circuit. Get it out as to many festivals as we can possibly get to. Yeah, Michael? Yeah,
the film festival circuit, and also at the same time we're trying to sell the film through the sales agent. So you finish a film and you have months up until the premiere we finished it 2 days before the premiere. So, you know, it was very short notice. So, you know, we still have a lot of preparation to do with, you know, promoting the film and getting it into other film festivals, really creating a buzz, even though the response from Outfest has been great. You know, so we really have still a lot of work to do to get the film out there, but we're working.
All right. Well, this is an extraordinary documentary. Thank you so much for making this and getting it out there. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us. I really cannot wait to share this with our audience and talk to them afterwards and get the reactions. So thank you again for this, and best of luck moving forward with everything.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.